once we're in, we're in. And, leading up to the election when we're running, we actually accepted Bitcoin and ETH as well. I'm kind of a technology guy, and we wanted to promote technology and experiment with it, and we understood it. And this wasn't just all of a sudden let's do something to get some votes. Like, we believed in it. It wasn't going to come up. It wasn't part of the plan to incorporate Bitcoin as a strategic, asset on our balance sheet. I was thinking it, but personally, I was thinking about it, but I thought we still had a few years,
Hmm.
and it's still early. And there are a lot of things that we want to achieve. We didn't want it to be this big thing that everyone sort of, ostracizes us for, because we're early and we look like quacks. And then the election happened in the U.S. and the U.S. Mentioned that they're looking into creating a strategic Bitcoin reserve. And in the context of that, with now 13 states that have expressed an interest in going to a strategic Bitcoin reserve, you have El Salvador. I was actually just in El Salvador for the Plan B conference this past week. But you have Bhutan, you have BlackRock, you have the ETFs, you have ARK Investments, you have insurance companies who are some of the most conservative investors on the planet investing in Bitcoin. You have three BRIC nations, front running the U.S. You have miners that are mining Bitcoin and holding. You have family offices, and then you have retail. Like, if the U.S. Buys another 800,000 Bitcoin, that literally eats up all the production for the next 12 years. And that's before any of the groups I mentioned get their hands on a single Bitcoin. So, once again, not giving investment advice, but that's, arguably, like, synthetically, the biggest short squeeze in the history of the earth. And I wouldn't be surprised if it went from 100 grand to $1 million overnight.
Yeah.
Um,
What are you
so
what are you
in
hearing
that,
from other municipalities or people in government across Canada? Is anybody else on the same train as you? Have you heard anything from any of the other municipalities or provinces?
uh, I know that some groups are working on it. No one has reached out, by the way, which is interesting, at least not in Canada. But I was just on a panel with the mayor of Santa Monica, and they're doing some work there. I know Detroit's accepting crypto payments, including Bitcoin payments now. Hong Kong made an announcement after we made an announcement. So there is activity, and I know there's a few things going up or going on in Alberta, and there's at least one BC city that's been looking at it as well, but no one's reached out. I think the challenge is it can be political suicide to do something like this.
Yeah.
But for me, and I think context is important as well. I'm not a career politician. I actually I actually don't like politics, and so I have no aspirations to be a premier or prime minister. The only reason I ran is because our four boys didn't see a future for themselves in Vancouver. I'm not afraid to be fired, and I don't. And I say this respectfully because I honor the position, and it's humbling, and I take it very seriously. Um, but I'm okay if I don't get reelected. I'm okay if I get fired, if we do the right thing. And I do believe that we have to look at this challenge, even if it's not Bitcoin. Our city can run off of a cliff, even if we do everything right. And so we have to address it. And I think on the flip side, this gives us the opportunity to set up the city for the next 100 years. And I'm willing to die on that hill. And if we do the right thing for the best interests of our city and we fail, I'm okay with that. And this is one of those issues that we have to take a stand on.
I like I appreciate that Ken, and that was kind of one of the
Mm-hmm.
the reasons, or maybe I felt a little bit of affinity to you, because I hear a lot of politicians. I'm not going to mention any names, but they say that they have an entrepreneurial journey,
Right.
and the minute they get elected to office, that so-called business that they were a successful entrepreneur at has disappeared. It's gone into the abyss. It was so good that nobody wanted to buy it after, and it can't run after them. And so, like, I really question the, like, almost like the entrepreneurial journey and the technical know-how of a lot of of a lot of politicians. It almost seems like it's like that's the job that could pay them, right? So, like, how did you? I believe your story because you have a track record of business that we can still look up. It still exists today. I look at myself as like whatever run for politics. Like, no chance. I don't want to do it. Like,
Mayor of Edmonton,
no way.
the new mayor of Edmonton, Josh Spurrell. Everybody,
I want that sort of scrutiny. But what made you say it's like, okay, I'm going to take a hack at this, and if they want to fire me, I'm just going to speak my mind anyway. So.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny. I don't know if I'm answering your question. Are you asking how, like, what was the decision point to get into politics, or are you asking why I just act the way I do, or
both? What was the decision where this was, personally worth the journey to expose yourself and become, on the political life, and then even to go even one step further than that, where it's like, I don't really care about the minute-to-minute public opinion. My goal is to steward this ship in the right direction long term.
Yeah. Well, let's be honest, right? When it comes to municipalities, I'll let you talk. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So I remember I was actually recruited to run for a different party the first time around, and I kind of chuckled. I blew it off, and then one of my mentors and good friends sat me down and said, "Hey, I hear you're running for politics." So I laughed and I said, "All right, I'll look at this." And I said, "Give me a few days," and I called like a bunch of friends, former premiers, political officials, people in industry and family, and our CEO at Nurse Next Door. And after a few days, I said, "You know what? I'm really flattered, but no thanks." And then I went to physio. And by the way, our CEO at Nurse, she said I should do it as well. I didn't listen to her. And then I went to physio, and my buddy, who's my physio, I said, "Hey, look, I got a wild story for you." And I told him about what happened that week. And then he looked at me and he said, "You're going to regret this, aren't you?" I'm like, "Fuck." Oh, sorry. But okay, well, this isn't PG. So I'm like, "Okay, I get it, but why?" And he said, "Every reason you gave me for not running was actually selfish." Right. It was about, you have time freedom, the compensation relative to what you can do in industry. You're taking a massive hit, the scrutiny you go through, all the haters that come out, and, suck it up. And so I rushed back to my office and asked if the opportunity was still there, and it was. And so that was the decision point. And that was Friday, April the 13th, 2018. And we had a pretty big run. We only had about 6 months, including winning a nomination battle and then running in the general election. We had no idea what we were doing, and we almost won it. I fell 957 votes short of winning that election, which was like 0.6 of 1% of all voters. It was I think it was the closest election in Vancouver history. So that's why that's the backstory there. And then about being authentic, I don't know. It's too hard to try to remember stuff. So I just call it as I see it and how I feel, and this is what you get. And having been in healthcare and looked at the regrets of the dying, and one of the regrets is not being your true self. And I'm just going to be my true self, take it or leave it. It's okay if you don't like it. It's not even wrong. But I've quit jobs, and we fired massive clients because they didn't align with what I believe in. For example, on the home healthcare side, at one point we were in a facility staffing business, and we had a client that accounted for 80% of our business. Unfortunately, they didn't treat our people very well, so we actually fired the client, and we had to double up on our mortgage. And it took us 5 years to get out of it, but we didn't lay any people off either, because it was the right thing to do. And so we'll do that at the City of Vancouver all day long. We're not afraid.
So, I mean, that's kind of interesting, because I feel like other politicians, they get it too, but they're not saying it. They're a little scared to say it. Like I remember back, maybe a year or two ago, Pierre Polyev was, shopping in Bitcoin, making transactions in Bitcoin, saying you can opt out of inflation, and then he got hit in the news, and then you didn't hear anything about Bitcoin afterwards. And so I would imagine when you brought that Bitcoin motion forward, talk to me about, like, did you encounter any resistance? What were the yays to nays when that went through?
Oh, I'm sure right now it's probably about 80-20.
80-20, yeah.
Including incredibly smart people who I have a ton of respect for.
Yeah.
Who basically think it's the wrong thing to do. That's the environment we're in right now. It's still early, and there's that has to go on, and people are still blinded by the current system. That's all they know, and so that's okay, right? Doesn't make them wrong. It's just sometimes when you're leading, and I would say any Bitcoiner who has gotten up to speed and fully understand it, you're leading. Guess what? There are a lot of people behind you that we have to bring along, and just comes with the territory. And I know Pierre understands it. The flip side is I think people have to appreciate the position that any politician's in. These elections can come; they can be really close, and the reward system that we built as voters is such that if you go too far away from the mainstream, it could cost an election, and you don't have an opportunity to implement this stuff if you don't get into the game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the resistance points, what are some of the main, like, I think it's important to, when just because someone says, no, I don't want Bitcoin, it's not to ostracize them. It's to understand why, like, what is their blockage right now? So what are the main resistance points that you still hear from, other members on council?
Yeah, members on council, and by the way, we love our councillors. And they're at different parts of their journey as well. So this is definitely not a knock. And we've created a reward system where you have to worry about what the public thinks as well. And so in that environment, they get the same concerns, right? It's bad for the environment. It's a Ponzi scheme. It's like tulips. It's highly volatile. There's nothing backing it, and it's used for crime. Okay, and so we just have to debunk all of those myths. First of all, anyone who think, first of all, if we're talking about crime, you see the same thing about iPhones and cars and the internet and cash. Are we banning any of that? In fact, Bitcoin is the truth machine. It's an immutable record. Only dumb criminals use it because they all get caught. So, you debunk that myth. You talk about the environment. Well, it's actually great for the environment. You can capture natural gas that's getting flared off and repurpose it and actually reduce your carbon footprint. Same with methane. It's also helping, green energy projects that would not pen out, which won't get financing when you have miners providing unlimited demand for them. These things pen out and they get built. So they're great for the environment. People think it's too volatile. Well, 11 out of the last 14 years, it's been the number one performing asset on the planet. And on average, for the last 16 years, it's been the number one performing asset on the planet. I don't know. I think it warrants a look as opposed to just dismissing it. The list goes on and on. And we just have to debunk these myths and educate people on this is great. This is great. Oh, the other thing is, and I say this respectfully because our people at the city of Vancouver are amazing. They're working in a system though where they have guardrails. And so we have $3.2 billion of fixed income securities. That's yielding between 88 basis points and just under 5% going out 28 years. And that's viewed by the majority as that's a safe conservative investment. And I look at it and it's like, it's losing 10 to 15% of its purchasing power per year. We're losing 300 to almost $500 million, 300 million to almost $500 million every year by it sitting in fixed income instruments that are getting debased by the money printer.
Yes.
So
yes,
it's this world's upside down right now, and we're trying to fix it.
And so I think I view I read that, I read the motion. It almost seems like the motion is very like, it's very PG. Like, I mean, you're just investigating ways that it could be used, right? Like it's very accommodating. It's seeking information almost to the point where it's like, and I almost think that anyone who's not doing that, who's not actually just at least looking into it, is irresponsible. Like, how can you not look into the best performing asset as a municipality or a province, right?
Yeah, well, let's just call it what it is. Now, we have a three-phase approach. I'll just put it out there. The first one, like, we don't want to shock and awe everyone. And to give you context, if we tried to pass a motion to explore looking at something in pretty much any other thing, that thing would get approved on consent. We wouldn't even talk about it. But because it's such a hot topic where there's still a lot of negative connotations around it, it wasn't super easy to pass the basically let's look at it motion, but it passed. The next thing we need to do is we need to educate our councillors, our city team members, and the public on the benefits of Bitcoin. Now, we have an incredible team, and they are going to write a report, and we're hoping for an incredible report that will approve the use of Bitcoin. And I'll leave it up to them as to what they want to do. Personally, I'd love to see a strategic Bitcoin reserve of some form, even a small percentage brought onto the balance sheet. And then the third thing is, even if we pass all of that, the provincial government has already expressed that they will not be doing this, and we have to seek their permission to get our what we call the Vancouver Charter changed so we can actually do this. And so this is a full court press to get the public educated, to help us, educate the province as well as to why this is important. Because I can tell you one thing, I think it's inevitable, but let's say it's highly probable that in 5 years, provinces, states, nation states, they'll all be on this, and the opportunity to have a ton of leverage on this and set Vancouver up will be lost. And by the way, I think by doing this, we give cities and provinces and our federal counterparts in Ottawa cover, and we give them license to look at this as well. So we're not just thinking about Vancouver. This is an issue. If you're patriotic like myself, I actually want Edmonton to do this, and I want to, even though I'm not an Edmonton Oiler fan when they're playing the Canucks, we want Edmonton to win as well, and Calgary and Regina and Toronto and like every single Canadian city, and we want them to do the same thing.